Warm up, flow, sequence 47, initiate. Okay, so I'm in a very still area, right? There's no other people around. If there were a ton of other people around, or if I was in a gym or something like that, there's currents in the room that make it so that you need to go along with those currents to be in the flow state. So like the machines want to be used. If you're in a dance studio, you'll find that the circle patterns, the habitual patterns that people walk, the expectations of how to move, things like that. If you're on like a sports team or a swim team, there's this psychic energy, like there's an expectation to swim laps, there's an expectation to be doing certain things, and when you're in those environments, those expectations are flows or currents in your mind. And so to be still, right, to access stillness in these areas, like if you're in a church, to be still, you need to pray. If you're on a swim team, to be still, you need to swim the laps and to do what the coach is expecting you to do, because those expectations and those intentions are creating a flow. And you can feel that flow of like, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to do this thing. Or if you're in ballet class, what am I supposed to do? You're supposed to do that thing, right? But if so you want to do that, but then you also want to study like, what am I supposed to do when there's no expectations around, when I'm just supposed to be, when I'm just supposed to be still. And so you'll find when you're just supposed to be still, any movement that you do is moving, it's moving through stillness. It's not being at one with stillness. It's not being at one with the space around. It's any movement, and you'll see I'm moving through space. I'm not being moved by space, right? Unless I induce an expectation into the field. But you'll find that your expectations, like the amount of expectation and intent, the amount that you can move the water when it's just by yourself, or you haven't had the ability to be cycling. Like if I did this for a while, the pattern and the rhythm and the expectation is causing these ripplings, these memories, right? A memory is like the pattern of being that you've induced into your mind. If you start doing something like this where I have a memory of going up and down, then there's an expectation of going up and down. And so then to be still, I'm having to do this because of my previous movement, but even now, like if I stop doing it, it wants to slow down. And it'll eventually come to a rest. Because I don't want to move the water, I want to be one with the water. And if the water's flowing, for me to be totally still in that body of water, I just drift with it. But if it's not moving, then it's there, and you're kind of limited in how fast and what you can do in stillness if there's no expectation. And any movement at all, even if I'm still and I'm feeling out this much, that movement is causing me to move through an even larger space, so I'm missing the connection with the larger and larger and larger stillness. And you can kind of get into a position that forces you to be connected. Because if you become disconnected, you'll lose balance and fall off. But even that's an activity, right? Unless you really get so still that the attentive pressure around and enveloping your body starts to lift it off the ground, and then at that point you can float in any position or any posture. But for a posture that like I have to lift my leg. It's not just coming up from the force of my attention. I'm lifting it. And there's slight little eddies and currents and stuff just in a still room that you'll find out if you really, really become still, you detach from those things, and they're felt as these eddies and these currents that you just can kind of go along with. Or be moved by, right? Like if a thought comes up, if you fight it or press against it, it's if it slips past you, then that moving through attention rather than with attention is noise, right? So if there's any sort of resistance to any of the thoughts whatsoever, it's noise unless it's like, oh, you have to go with it, right? And that's what's happening. You'll find that look up any sort of coaching and this sort of thing, and they're talking around what the phenomenon of what's actually happening is that there's currents or movements in your consciousness that behave just identically to water because the body is saturated in water. So all patterns, all studies of behavior, anything that your life force is doing is an event that's contained and enveloped inside of the principles of water, wearing the principles of water like a skin or like a body. Like all psychological phenomena, everything from attention to focus to skill to listening, perception, all of that is embodied in water, right? So the behavior of water, the way that it supports waves, the ways that it moves, the ways that you're able to push off of water or move through water, all of that is the surrounding container for all activities pertaining to human life force, like anything a living person might try and do, is contained in the water, which is the silence. Like water itself is silence. Like if you go sit in water, you'll see what I'm talking about. It is silence, and if you don't see it, go very deep into it, so that you just have this volume of silence all around you, and you'll see that it is silence. And that silence is awareness, and it's so silent and so aware that it's like the eyes absorb the phenomenon, and in that absorption they're getting in the way of the phenomena to cause the perception. Whereas the silence, the awareness, the world is simultaneously passing through it unchanged and emerging from it and becoming out of it. The same way that the surface of the water emerges from the invisible field, the bulk water beneath. It's like all phenomena, all form are emerging from silence, the same way that the surface emerges from water, because it's the same way. Like there's nothing linguistically more attached to our awareness and our life force and our process. There's nothing linguistically or materially more attached to the mind than water. So in terms of using the analogical thinking to understand stuff, water is glued to conscious awareness. And those things are glued to silence, glued to whatever. So when you talk about one, you're talking about the behavior of all of them. Even if you were to dig into it and be able to make a distinction between these things, they are cemented together so thoroughly that functionally, linguistically, you can talk about any of them and we're talking about the other. Like you could be talking about your life force and whatever directly, and then lo and behold, you'll find that you're describing what the water is doing as well. And it's vice versa. And so, yeah,